Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here for Pinkfresh Studio. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am conducting a little experiment and I am trying out some embossing on washi tape. And I'm going to be using the new Lemons and Blueberries washi tape, coordinating one-piece stamp and the coordinating one-piece die. And I'm just kind of rolling out the washi here so you can see this beautiful pattern. I love how everything on the washi tape and the stamp set and the die all line up so it's easy to create using all three of these products together. Now I'm starting out by placing my washi onto some Hammermill white cardstock, and I like to cut this to about 4 1/4 by 11 inches. That's just cut in half long ways on a letter piece of cardstock. I start at one end, and with the Lemons and Blueberries, I find that it's easiest to start with the cluster end. I'm going to roll out until I have the wreath kind of press down onto the cardstock, and then I'm going to use my slice tool, which is a ceramic blade cutting tool, and a T-square ruler to just trim this off. Now, once I have this trimmed off, I'm going to take a scoring tool, my Teflon bone folder, and just kind of press all over this. This washi is really forgiving, so if you do get a couple little bubbles in there, you can often work them out with the side of a Teflon bone folder or a stencil pal, or you may even be able to kind of lift it and replace it onto the cardstock, depending on what cardstock you're using. So once I have this all pressed down and all of the wrinkles worked out, I trimmed off the excess cardstock, and I'm going to place this into my MISTI. And you're going to see that with my standard size MISTI, this is a little too long for me to do all of the stamping at one time. So I'm going to do it in 2 phases. I am first going to place the lower right-hand corner of the cardstock into the lower right-hand corner of the MISTI, and I am going to line up the one-piece stamp lined up with all of those clusters at the bottom, because the clusters are what I am focusing on stamping first. So once I have my stamp in place, I'm going to close the lid of my MISTI and pick up my stamp. And then I'm just going to mask off the very bottom of this wreath so that I don't get any ink on that when I ink up my stamp. And I'm going to prep the surface of this washi really well with my powder tool. I mean, I am getting some powder onto this washi tape because I know that the washi is kind of this waxy, kind of staticky surface. And I know that if I don't prep it well, I will have embossing powder in areas that I don't want it. So once I have that washi prepped, I'm going to go ahead and ink my stamp using some Versamark ink. And then I'm going to remove those masks that I placed over the bottom of my wreath, because those will have a little bit of ink on them if I wasn't careful. And I'm going to stamp the bottom clusters or the bottom of this design of washi tape. So right now, like I mentioned before, I'm just focusing on stamping those clusters. So I'm going to stamp that down. I am going to use my Stamper's Secret Debbie stamping tool to put pressure all over the surface of this stamp. And once I have that stamped onto this washi covered cardstock, I'm going to take it over and I'm going to add some Brutus Monroe sterling embossing powder. And I'm just going to sprinkle that all over the stamped area, and I'm going to give it a good flick once I get this covered in embossing powder, to remove any of the embossing powder that might have stuck to areas on that washi tape that I didn't want it. Now, I did find that even with all the prepping that I did, and even, with being as careful as I was, there were a few areas that had some embossing powder. Now, because I'm going to die cut this out, it maybe wasn't a big deal. But I went ahead and used a dry paintbrush to remove any of that excess embossing powder. And then I'm using my heat tool to heat set that. And you can see now I have this beautiful silver embossed outline on this watercolor design that's on the washi. It is so beautiful. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to stamp the wreath. So I'm taking the upper left-hand corner of my cardstock and placing it in the upper left-hand corner of my MISTI. And I'm going to realign my stamp to where I have my wreath aligned with that lemon in the middle, because this time I'm just stamping the wreath portion. And like I mentioned before, because this stamp is just a little too long for my standard size MISTI, I decided to stamp in phases. Now I can pull out my Memory Misty if I want and stamp this all at once, but I know that a lot of you out there may not have the large size Memory Misty, so I wanted to show you how I accomplished this with the standard size Misty. Now, once again, I prepped the surface of that washi tape really well with my powder bag, and I inked up just the wreath portion of the stamp with some Versamark ink, and then I'm closing the door of the Misty to stamp this onto the washi tape. Now, I'm using my Debbie stamping tool once again to apply pressure over the entire area. You can also use like your sleeve or a microfiber cloth, whatever you may have, just to kind of glide your hand over the surface of the door of the Misty. Then I added my sterling embossing powder once again, and I heat set that with my heat tool. And I'm just trying to keep my heat tool kind of moving along so that I don't like mess with the adhesive of the washi. And you can see I have this beautiful silver embossed outline over the entire surface of this washi tape. So now I'm taking the coordinating one-piece die. I love that this is one piece, so you only have to kind of align one thing instead of 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 things. And you run it through your die cut machine one time, and then you have all of your pieces ready to go, ready to place on a card. Now keep in mind, this washi tape, you can also place it onto some parchment paper or wax paper and die cut it and then remove it from the parchment or wax paper. And that's perfect for just applying directly to the card or for using in a planner or something like that. Now, I call this a washi experiment because I wasn't sure how well this is going to work. Now, it looks beautiful, but I'm going to tell you, this is actually very delicate. If I take my fingernail and scrape at this washi, I can definitely remove it. So if you do this technique, I would recommend that you treat it delicately as you're working with it because you can definitely scrape it off. Now I have some pattern paper from Pinkfresh Studio, and I have my mini Slimline die bundle here. And I am die cutting the rectangle with the diagonal kind of stitching along the edge from this pattern paper. This is one of my favorite patterns in the Pinkfresh line. I love the color blue with that beautiful white geometric print on it. It is so beautiful, and it looks so great with these lemons. And I was actually inspired to use the pattern paper with these lemons by Kia, and she's a part of the Pinkfresh design team as well. And I saw a card that she made, and she had used this pattern paper with the lemons, and I thought, I have to do that. So now I am using a couple of these circle designs from the mini Slimline bundle die, and I am creating some kind of knockout circle patterns on this panel. I'm creating 2 mini Slimline cards today. So the mini Slimline cards measure 3 1/4 by 6 1/4. So I cut my cardstock to 6.5 by 6 1/4, and I score along that 6.5 inch side at the 3 1/4 inch mark to create my card base. Now for my sentiment, I am using the new Sweet Hot Foil plate from Pinkfresh Studio. I've placed that onto my Gemini FoilPress platform, and I've set my platform to a medium heat. I've added my foil with the pretty side facing the design of my foil plate, and then I've added my cardstock on top of that. I placed my plate on top of that and then ran it through my die cut machine once I had had the platform fully heated and timer set for 15 seconds. I used some silver foil today because I thought that would look really beautiful with the lemons and that light blue that I'm using. And you can see I got a perfect foiled sentiment here. Now I die cut that using the coordinating sweet die, and I kind of played with my elements here. I've added some foam adhesive to the back of them, and now I'm going to start assembling this together. Now you can see I've actually used a portion of one of these sentiments from the Blossoms and Berries stamp set that was also released in June of 2021 by Pinkfresh Studio. And I have that kind of adhered to my foiled sweet sentiment here. I added that, and I decided later that I didn't want that extra little sentiment there. So I end up taking that off and just leaving it with the sentiment that says sweet. Now I've taken another one of these pieces from the Lemons and Blueberries washi tape, and I'm cutting it in half, kind of fussy cutting along one of the edges. And I'm using a little bit of liquid adhesive to adhere these pieces, kind of poking out from the other whole pieces that I've already used. And once I get those positioned, I am now ready to flip this over, add some foam adhesive to the back of my card panel, and then add this onto my card base. So I'm just going to carefully line that up. I really like to kind of place this. Sometimes when I can't get my head directly over it because I'm filming, I like to just kind of hold it up in front of me to make sure I have all of my outer margins kind of equal. And then I will press that down. Now I'm going to finish this card off by adding a few of the silver metallic pearls that were released from Pinkfresh Studio. I thought that would look really beautiful with that silver foiled sentiment. And I thought I would be done here, but let's be honest, I am totally obsessed with the brand new Small Butterflies hot foil plate from Pinkfresh Studio. So I decided to foil some of these small butterflies onto some acetate using that same silver foil that I used for that sweet sentiment, and add those onto my card. So I just have my plate here on my FoilPress platform, and I added my foil with the pretty side facing the pattern on the foil plate. Then I added some clear acetate over the top. And when I'm foiling on acetate, I like to use a cardstock shim. So I added that cardstock in there, and then finally my plate on top. I set my timer for 15 seconds, and once that timer's done, I'm going to remove the platform from the base, run that through my Gemini Junior, and then you're going to see that I have these beautiful foiled butterflies on this clear acetate, and it is so amazing. I'm absolutely obsessed with these foiled acetate butterflies. I mean, I cannot get enough of them. So you can see these turned out beautiful. I'm going to use the coordinating one-piece die to just die cut all of those out, and then I can add a couple of these to my card project. Now, I did want to mention that when I am die cutting acetate, I do find it very helpful to add a metal shim into my sandwich. So I have my cutting plate, I have my acetate with the die over the top. I did put a piece of tissue paper in there just to keep from kind of scratching up my foiling. I added my metal plate on top of that, or my metal cutting shim. A second plate, the plastic shim, the magnetic shim. This is my normal die cutting sandwich. I just added the metal shim in there, and then I have perfectly die cut acetate butterflies. I added just a little bit of liquid adhesive along the areas on the back of the butterflies where there was some foiling, and I folded up their wings just a little bit to give them some dimension, and I added them onto my cards here, and these turn out absolutely beautiful. I do find with the acetate, I have to hold it in place for just a second while the glue kind of sets up. And here's a look at the card that I created on camera today. But I also used those same elements. I didn't die cut or create any more. I just used some of the other ones that were left over and created a second card today as well. So there you have it, two really beautiful cards featuring some embossing on washi tape and a little bit of foiling as well, which we all know we cannot get enough of. And I really hope you enjoyed these projects, and I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube, so if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. As I mentioned before, I really hope you enjoyed these projects. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on this YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the fabulous paper crafting and card making video tutorials shared here. Also, leave me a comment below and let me know if this is a technique that you have tried before and if it's something that you will try in the future. And if you loved this video, I would love it if you would share it with a friend. Thanks again for watching. I'm so glad you're here. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.